What's up? How's it going?
Good. Coming to you from the East Coast. You're out in the West, right?
Yeah, yeah, we're in recovery mode. Shannon completed the race this year. I was thinking that that it
Good.
is kind of full circle because we had started the podcast, and shortly after that last year, I was out here um, uh,
True.
crewing for Shannon. Yeah, and had to hold on. Am I back? You there?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Anyway, so I was crewing for Shannon, and we had to report or I had to like talk through like what had happened, which she got the water poisoning last year, or like
Yeah.
electrolyte imbalance, and we had to pull her out like around 2/3 of the way through the race. This year did not go great either. I just don't think our race. I don't know. It's very hot. It's very dry. It's kind of silly for us to think that we can fly across the country 2 days ahead of a race and Shannon be
Yeah.
at
Peak
peak
performance.
performance. But she looked worse this year through the first 2/3 of the race than she did last year. But she just gutted it out. Like she didn't get to the point. Well, she probably got to the point where we should have pulled her, but she was 4 miles out and had pacers this year. If she didn't have pacers, I would have had to. I probably would have had to throw the towel in. She definitely had a heat stroke. In like by the so they have a station 4 miles out from the finish line, and she was covered in heat rash, shaking, not sweating, was both hot and cold. Um, yeah, not in good shape. Like
How hot
like
was it?
it was like 100 degrees.
Like
Um,
actual air temperature?
yeah, and
Holy
then
shit.
and then it's dry. It's like kind of a desert climate. It's not exact. I don't know what this
Yeah.
climate is, but
It's
it's
arid.
very very dry,
Yeah.
and you're at altitude, or at least a
Yeah.
higher altitude than we're used to, and so the sun beats down on you different. You know that like when we go
Yeah.
like snowboarding and skiing, like people,
Yeah.
um, you have to put sunscreen on and stuff too because the sun is closer to you, so it has
Yep.
more of an impact on how it feels, and she's like climbing up one mountain after another, and at the top there's just nothing but the sun, you know beating down on you. So anyway, yeah, very hot. She had issues with keeping food down, which I've never seen before, but yeah, she couldn't eat. She looked. I described it to her. She has a like part of her, I guess, her team. Her
Yeah.
massage therapist was like texting me for updates, and I think I said I was just giving him like the exact state of things, and I was like, she looks skeletal. She's shaking. She's not sweating. She is she looks ghoulish. I think is how I
Yeah.
described her at one point. And but she was mentally there the whole time. And
Yeah.
so I mean, 2/3 of the field had dropped out 6 hours before, or sorry, 1/3 of the field had dropped out 6 hours before the race even finished.
Yeah.
So like I guess that gives you a sense of the conditions. I mean, people were just losing their
What
mind.
percentage completed then?
We don't know.
Yeah.
They haven't. This race sucks, by the way, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Like I've crewed for other races for her, and this is like the worst organized piece of shit race.
But she likes doing it because it's like a hometown race to her, right?
Yeah, so she considers it her hometown race, and I think
Yeah.
it's because So there's this. I mean, people who do this shit are weird, and I don't like them.
You don't say.
But um, there's this. I think that as this like sport has become more, there's been more eyeballs on this sport. I think a lot of that is,
More visible, yeah.
yeah. Who's that psycho? I can't think of his name. He wrote a book, "You Can't Hurt Me." David Goggins, and he became this like fairly popular figure maybe 5 years ago, and he's a big ultra marathon runner. And him and there's like some other guys. This guy Cam something or other, who's a bow hunter turned ultra marathon runner. There are some like big influencers who have pushed the sport, and so with that has come money into the sport. And so a lot of the big events, I think I'm just like, this is just from listening to Shannon talk through
Yeah.
like what's happening with the sport. They're being like scooped up by these commercial enterprises, and this one is independently held still. It's like organized,
Yeah.
like primarily by this one woman who's also an ultra runner. And uh it feels like sometimes there's benefit to having money to like provide good
Put
infrastructure
behind
to
something.
something
Yeah.
like this. And
Yeah.
this is clearly a very bare bones operation. And so there were, I mean, without getting too in the weeds on all of this, there were hours where I couldn't get any information on where Shannon was, and I would talk to the aid stations, and like they don't even have walkie talkies to talk to each other. So that like I
Nice.
couldn't get any information. Like I didn't know if I needed to, because I knew the race was going bad, like in terms of what
Yeah.
our initial goals were, at least. But she was still there. Like it wasn't like last year where she was clearly out of her mind, but
Yeah.
there was like definitely a heightened level of concern where I needed more info than I was able to get. Um,
Sure.
and then you know how like Shannon's actually right next to me, like sleeping, and I think like listening in. But she knows how I feel about the types of people who are into this. Like Shannon is unique. Shannon, I was saying this morning, Shannon is
Yeah.
like,
Thank you
like
for prefacing that. Just
yeah, well, because I love Shannon, and I know what she puts. I see what she puts into it, and I want her to succeed at it. And hopefully, I like with her and her goals. Like I'm very support. I think hopefully, obviously, very supportive of like what she wants to accomplish. But for everyone else that does this, I there's this like toxic positivity element to like they just seem
that
like
must not jive
just
well with you. Yeah.
no, it does not sit well with me. There's something wrong with all these people where they just like I don't know. And so even taught like the people who are crewing for these races are they're also ultra runners, and I don't like talking to them. And
Sure.
there's kind
Yeah.
of this
That
element, you
would
know how like
actually, honestly, that's
as
how I would probably be interacting with those people too.
so there's you know how like when we go to ski resorts or like beach towns, there's this detachment from reality for the people that are
Yeah.
working at those resorts where like I don't feel like we're having the same conversation. I get that same
Or like the
feeling from
townies
like
that are
when
just like free skiing. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So I get the same vibe when I'm having to like communicate with the people who are organizing these things. But yeah, the way I described it to Shannon is like she is like alone and like I'm like so stoked for her. But everyone else I'm like this guy like at one of the stops we were on the path, like the people had to park on the path that the runners would then run up, and the
Sure.
aid station was down at the bottom of this like gradual incline. And so the like runners were hitting the aid station and then running up past us, and this was at like 2 a.m. And so they've all got headlamps on, and we see this guy kneel over and just projectile vomit. And so it's the headlamp, and you're just seeing the stuff come out, this like
Yeah.
shadow
Yeah.
of and he if you told me that he had evacuated 2 quarts of liquid, I would believe you. And then he just jogged past us, and we're all like sitting at the car cooking like breakfast sandwiches, and we just stopped and we're watching this go on, and we're like, dude, what the fuck? Like, and then jogs by after that. It went on for like 5 minutes, and he jogs by, and I'm like, hey, dude, are you all right? Like, do you need a Gatorade or anything? And he goes, nope, all part of the fun, and then just jogs away. And there's like a level of like suffering and like goal setting and idiocy that I can find appreciation for. But there's a point where I actually just think you're whatever you're doing is just so stupid that I lose respect for you. And it's somewhere between like a 50 miler and a 100 miler for me, like where that falls off a cliff. I don't understand why anyone does it. Anyway, so that's how the race went. She just like absolutely gutted it out. I don't know anyone tougher than her.
Yeah, I'm glad she finished. That's awesome.
Yeah, fucking ridiculous. Like I don't. Yeah, I'd be interested in like how much of the last 20 miles of that she even really remembers because of the amount of pain and suffering she was going through.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, we should probably talk about soccer. You had a run-in with Luke, who's not here today.
Yeah, you think you're not going to see Luke for months at a time, and then you just walk into a liquor store, and there he is. You hear his voice, you turn around, you say, hey, and he says, hey, fuck you, and, you just have a conversation from there. So, yeah, Luke, obviously Luke, I was not expecting to run into Luke, and that was literally his reaction.
Why would anyone expect to see Luke?
With the store owner in front of him, was say, fuck. Yeah, exactly. So imagine my shock and his shock. And he's like, oh, yeah, I know this guy. We play soccer together. And I was like, hold on a fucking minute here. You introduced me as some guy you play soccer with. We're friends and we have a fucking podcast together. And he's like, oh, yeah. Well, yeah. And the owner's like, yeah, you have a podcast? And Luke's like, yeah, I forget like the name of it half the time. And I'm I show up when I feel like he's like telling the guy about the podcast. He's like, oh, okay. And Luke's like, what are you doing here? I'm like, dude, what do you mean? What am I doing here? Who do you think told me about this random ass liquor store 20 minutes from where I work? He's like, oh yeah, that was probably me. Like, holy shit, man. just like
dude,
the quintessential Luke experience.
Yeah, we love the guy, obviously, but the level of dysfunction is real. Like it's not a joke. He is. Yeah, it's pretty remarkable his ability to, like, his life seems to generally, like, it's generally like going in a good direction, but like there doesn't seem to be a lot of strategy around it. It's all it seems very chaotic for me. I don't know that I would sleep if like.
The last I had heard from him, right, was that he was in North Carolina, and then he was like, he already been clear he wasn't going to be around for weeks of the podcast. So I expected he was like on some other part of the planet, and then I run just the first place I walk into after work. He's in there.
There he is, slinging
he's
whiskey.
Gone again. Yep, yeah. just gone like the wind after that.
Yep.
So yeah, we'll see when the next time we run into Luke is. Maybe I'll be playing soccer with him tomorrow night. Who knows?
Yeah, you will not be playing soccer with Shannon. So
that's probably for the best for Shannon. Yeah,
she's not moving well today. Well, let's get into it. So Spain beats England, which I predicted and hoped for. Luke probably not happy about this one. He was Team Southgate. I don't know. What were your thoughts around this one?
From an accountability standpoint, I appreciate a Yerzabal or whatever his stupid name is scoring the game winner after I said he was dog shit last podcast. So I mean, this one kind of played out the way you and I
forgot
thought,
about
I think, largely. Right? Like, yeah, I think Nico Williams, Lamine Yamal had great games. England looked inept tactically, or Southgate looked inept tactically. Um, Man, what a terrible tournament for Foden. Palmer comes in and immediately shows that he probably should have been playing a lot more of Foden's minutes in this whole tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, there wasn't a lot of anything new here. I mean, Kane again, just useless, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, somebody, Tony or Watkins, should have been taking a ton of his minutes. Yeah, I think, yeah, maybe that's the, and then, again, Shaw out there. Yeah, I thought Shaw was pretty bad defensively. The I'm trying to think of, that was the first goal or the second. Yeah, it was the first goal, right, that Nico Williams scored. I thought Shaw and Walker both looked terrible. Walker was out of position. Shaw just gave away a passing lane in a way that I it's tough for me to explain, other than he's just fucking lost out there on the left. So yeah, I think England definitely deserved to lose this one. Southgate deserved to lose it, and yeah, the worst case scenario is still possible, right? Which is he comes to the U.S. men's national team, and I don't know. I mean, I guess I just stopped watching the U.S. men's national team at that point and just doubled down on the Chelsea debacle.
Yeah, we should talk about that in a minute, because I'd actually, out of the options that are on the table for the U.S. men's national team, I am not sure that that's even the worst one, which is
Well, okay,
terrifying.
fair. Yeah.
But yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. What a tournament for Lamine Yamal and Nico Williams. Spain have their wingers sorted for 10 years, the next decade.
Shit.
Cucurella assisting the game winner, it was just like the chef's kiss, for
True.
me.
Yeah.
With Gary Neville starting the tournament and giving his assessment, his appraisal of this Spanish squad was that that they were going nowhere because Marc Cucurella was their starting left back. And then for Cucurella to, I mean, he was in the best 11 for the tournament, and he deserved to be. And him getting the game-winning assist against presumably Gary Neville's England, I assume that's who he was rooting for, to seal the tournament for them. That was pretty spectacular. And Cucurella, I don't know if you saw, he took a shot at Neville on
Did
Instagram.
He? Isn't Neville the one that somebody tried to punch, or was that Carragher?
I remember that happening, but I don't remember which.
Yeah. I think, anyways, I think both of them are 50-year-old dudes that I wouldn't mind taking a crack at, just because, I don't like their face. And Neville needs to stop.
Yeah.
Neville just needs to stop talking. But yeah, no, you're right on that one.
Well, I hope in that scenario that he takes a crack back at you and breaks your nose, so that you can.
So I can't play on Monday Night Soccer for a couple weeks without a mask. The Mbappe paradox.
Yeah. Yeah, so Cucurella posted to his Instagram story the quote from Gary Neville, which I now have right in front of me. He said, I think Cucurella is one of the reasons that I think Spain probably can't go all the way. So Cucurella has that quote on the screen with a picture of him lifting the trophy. And he said, Cucurella said, "We went all the way, Gary. Thank you for the support," with a heart emoji, which is just so good. Like Cucurella has, talk about being wrong. I wouldn't say that I was wrong about Cucurella with the velocity that you were wrong about. What's his name? Arizabal, or I don't know.
Yeah, whatever. That'll be the last goal of meeting for his career, but
yeah, I mean, I was very wrong about Cucurella, and very difficult to imagine Chelsea living without Cucurella coming into next season, particularly with Enzo Maresca's system and his reliance on.
Well, I will say this, and I'm stealing it from somewhere else, but like objectively speaking, he wasn't playing well initially for Chelsea, right? Until he was
No,
somehow like Pochettino managed to just get the best out of him when he changed his role around, and he just carried that into the Euros, right? And it actually is interesting because it was doing more, like his role expanded and he grew into that rather than just doing lefts. Um, but yeah, I
I don't
mean,
know. It's
which
just different. It's a different role. I don't know that it's like a more or less thing. I guess
yeah.
like when you're inverting into the middle, you have a broader array, excuse me, of responsibilities.
I mean, I
But
think he's definitely running more, right? He's covering more ground, however it's working out, you know.
I don't think so. Do you think? I
No.
actually have no idea. Like, does
I
invert?
thought
So
he was
you're
really getting up and down for Spain. I think he started getting up and down for
oh
Chelsea. Um,
yeah.
that I just don't think that was like he was just kind of hanging back in the other, and then Malo Gusto was probably primarily getting forward on the other side, and then they kind of just got let him be more that push him to be more aggressive and fill different spaces. But
Yeah, well, so that's why I'm thinking about, so like if you think about the Tuchel era, and then Potter kind of carried a lot of what they had set up into the way he was playing. Chelsea were very reliant on the strike force on the from the wing backs of Reece James and Ben Chilwell, and they really get up and down the pitch, right?
yeah,
Like they're covering tons of ground. So when you're employing wingbacks in that way, and you're keeping them out wide, like Kukurea, that's what I think the key has been with Kukurea. If you look at how he was used at Brighton, and how Spain use him, and how Chelsea wrapped the season up using him, and the way he'll probably be used by Chelsea next season, he is not a like hug the line and bomb up and down the wing style of player. He's a lot
yep,
better,
yeah,
yeah, covering like more as like a ball winning
Come,
midfielder in
yeah,
attack, and then
coming in between the lines rather than going
yeah,
outside. To your point,
yeah. So I mean, it's very different, and like kind of fucking silly that we were using him like we
yeah,
I think I said this at one point when Kukurea started to come into form, and we were using him in the way that worked for him. Like when we started inverting him,
yeah,
I was like I was thinking about it, and City wanted Kukurea specifically because of his ability to invert, and then we overpaid
yeah.
for
That
him
system.
to rip it just because he was a City target, and at the time Todd Bowley was making all the acquisition decisions, and he was like,
Yeah,
well, City wants him, so now I want him, and I'm going to pay more for him. But like he didn't fit the system at all, and now that he fits the system, he's playing well. And when you say it like that, it's like, well, yeah, fucking obviously, like buy players that fit the system you want to play.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm happy. It's like he seems like a really good dude. He's like really uh he doesn't take himself seriously, and
Yeah, he's pretty
his
good
interviews are
natured.
always really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good natured. That's a good way to put it. And so it's cool to see him doing well again. And like now, like dude, if you asked me who, if I, and it sounds like this might be the case, like the Chelsea are, and it makes sense, right? Like Chile and Cucurella are of a similar age. So if you're thinking of like a succession plan for the team, you don't need both of your left backs
Yeah, they're
phasing out at
mutually
the same time.
exclusive probably at this point.
Yeah, and so if you're like asking me who I want to keep, it's Cucurella, and it's not even close. Like Chilwell should be
Sure.
moved
Yeah.
on. So yeah, I mean, what a tournament for him. His stock is through the roof. And then Olmo didn't have the best game uh, per the standards that he set throughout this tournament, but he still was critical. Like he had that goal line clearance that was every bit as important for this win as scoring a goal.
True.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, Olmo's stock way up as well. He'll probably go. Like I read this morning, his release clause is 60, I think. but
Yeah.
it expires soon. And then I guess it would be an open negotiation. I don't know. I think he plays for Leipzig, right? Or is it?
I was just trying to take a look at that. Yeah, he's at RB Leipzig.
Yeah, I can't really Google things without like this hotel internet connection is hanging on by a thread. But yeah. So Leipzig, I don't know if it benefits them to like leave it to the release clause being triggered. Like, is he worth more than 60 million because of a good tournament? I don't know. He was a fairly unknown coming into this and wasn't even the starter until Pedri went down with injury for Spain, right? So his stock is way up, but is it like a like this mistake happens all the time? You buy a player based on a good tournament and then they never they never hit those highs again, you know? So
Sure. But I don't know. 60 million is not unreasonable. I mean, it's a lot, but it's not unreasonable given, to your point, like his performance here. So you could see him moving. But
yeah. And then, yeah, like you said, Southgate, the last note I had here, Southgate's finally gone. I think this guy, yeah, I didn't even talk about England because, like, like, I don't, it was all the same. Like, this guy's just unable to make, uh, so it's unfair to say he's unable to make a tactical, like, he did try to tweak things with this system, but not enough. And
yeah,
you need to be able to pick up on things like, okay, Foden's not having a good tournament, and every time I put Cole Palmer on, he's changing the game. He's
yeah,
clearly more informed than Foden, and like you need to be able to make that call. And
sure.
I don't know, like it's a gutsy call because Foden won the I think FA player, like he was the EPL player of the season, right? But and he did have a great season. But if the FA player, if the EPL player of the season was Cole Palmer, I would have. I think it would have been justified. I think he led the league in goal involvements, and I think Ollie Watkins was second, and maybe that was flipped. Like maybe Watkins was
Yeah,
number one, and Palmer was number two, and Southgate has both of them on the bench. Um,
sure. Yeah, yep.
it's yeah, I don't know. He deserves it.
Just never address the problems. Yeah,
Yeah, really happy for Palmer to get that goal. The XG
yeah,
on that goal must have been basically zero, but he, I mean, he is just Chelsea would have been Chelsea might have been relegated if
yeah,
they didn't have Cole Palmer this season. And for 2/3 of the season, Chelsea was a completely dysfunctional team and was
yeah.
being completely carried by Palmer. So, like, I'm not surprised at all that he scored that goal. But
I
yeah,
was I was surprised he just came on and made it happen. And to your point, it wasn't an easy goal to score.
no,
It's just it's weird because when I don't know, like there's something about him where I'm like he's not like this super athlete, and there's not necessarily other than his penalty taking any like attribute that like is like top 99.5 percentile, but he puts it all together and it's I don't know, he's having a Frank Lampard level impact on every team he's playing on right now,
yeah,
which is
that I
just
think
crazy
that's a
to think about.
great parallel to draw is between him and Frank Lampard. They're different players, but what they have in common is that they are not the greatest athlete. But so what
Sure, yeah,
where he is like in like so yeah, you were saying he doesn't have like a top 1% attribute or however you just phrased it. But I think that he does, but it's hard to quantify in statistics. It's mentality, and that's what Lampard had, like the ability to know
yeah,
where to be and to not give a fuck. Like um,
yeah.
watching him
The
come
Thomas
onto these
Muller card.
games, yeah, yeah, watching him come into these games, like Southgate's only bringing him on in like when things are bad, you know, like
It's too late to
England,
fucking solve anything. Yeah.
yeah, England are down a goal again because Southgate, you know, put them in that position, and he's subbing Palmer on, and you can just tell he
Yeah.
doesn't give a fuck. Like when the camera's on him,
Yep.
it's like, yeah, okay, I'll have a crack, you know, like
Yeah, I keep thinking
he
it's going to get
doesn't.
to him, like coming in that late in the game, but
Yeah, no, and I mean
he's
he
unfazed. You're
scored
right.
a penalty when the match against oh no, who did they go to pens? Was it Netherlands? No, who did they go to pens against? Anyway, whenever they went to penalties, uh like Palmer scored that. He scored this goal. He assisted the Ollie Watkins goal. So with very limited minutes, he produced so much for this team.
Yeah. Yep.
I think that was Switzerland. They went to penalties. Watkins
Okay. Yeah.
scored the game
Yep.
winner against Netherlands. That's right. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just as Southgate. I mean, we've talked about this at length. Not an impressive coach. I guess you know you do have to recognize how he turned around the sentiment surrounding this England, like
Yeah.
the experience of playing for England and making it desirable again. And I know that he did a lot to put. I don't want to say push inclusivity, but he made that the norm, I guess, in a time where that wasn't the norm for England. And all of
Yeah, I mean,
those
this was a
things are
team that
very
was
good.
dysfunctional until he came
Yeah,
along for
yeah,
decades, basically, right? So I think I think it's fair to give him some credit there where it's due.
yeah. But you're never winning a final with him, and
No,
yeah.
it's
Now,
weird because you look at this roster. Kane still will be 32 for the World Cup, right? You have all this young talent. I don't think anyone else ages out, and like this team could be a favorite for the World Cup again.
yeah. Well,
It
and
might
that's
actually be
his
better from a
legacy.
talent standpoint, but yeah,
Yeah, so that's his legacy, right? He broadened the appeal of playing for England, and has, you know, has been a key piece of how the entire youth system of England has developed,
yeah,
and so now like this sort of pipeline that he's overseen. I mean, it's not just him, but like he's been a key part of for the last 8 years. You know, this is his legacy. They have a
yeah,
team where practically every position has a top 15 in the world player, and in many of them it's top 5 or 10. Like Bellingham, probably the best player in the world.
yeah, yeah,
But he is, you have to recognize that he's not the guy who's going to take that level of talent and get them across the line. He's just
yeah.
clearly not
From a
that guy.
tactical standpoint, yeah,
Yeah. I read, I don't know like the inner workings of how England is set up, but I read that he's not even responsible for the tactics. Like his assistant coach is, he really is just a vibesman, like a face of
wow. All right,
the
well,
of the operation, and the tactics are deferred to somebody on his staff, and that's important. I mean, like your coach also needs to, your manager needs to um, also
yeah, I don't know what
contribute
kind of
to.
fucking system that is for a top four national team, but
Well, yeah, true. I'm saying they need to have that also. They shouldn't be separate, but like whoever is leading the England team needs to have like a good media presence and like be a good personality and a steward for
sure,
the
yeah.
program. Um yeah, so like
But
that
there's a lot
stuff's
of coaches
important,
that
but
can
yeah,
do both.
yes. Yeah. I think they'll get, so who would you pick for the spot? Like we'll wrap up on that. Who do you think,
Oh,
who would you
for
pick
the
for the
I
England
don't
manager
know.
spot? If
I don't care what goes on with the
you don't
England
care.
national team. I don't I actually I don't yeah I haven't even thought about it to take a guess. Yeah, I don't know. Who do you
I
think?
think
I haven't even
I think
looked at the
the
poll to
like
be honest.
windmill dunk pick would be Thomas Tuchel.
Yeah,
He's a
I
great
like
tournament
that.
coach.
I like that.
Great
He'd
tournament
certainly be
coach.
down with Kyle Walker's lifestyle. They get it going on.
Yeah, yeah. He'd be down for that. He'd also know a lot of the players from his time at Chelsea.
Yeah,
He plays a system that would work for the wingback options they have. He's a great media personality.
good tournament coach.
Yeah, that's very good tournament coach. I think he'd be the perfect pick, but he's not English, and I think that I don't know how that would sit with. Yeah. So everybody's talking about what's his name, the Newcastle coach, but I think Tuchel would be a better coach.
Yeah, it's fair.
A better manager. Excuse me. Yeah, all right. Well, so that's the wrap up for the Euros. I don't even know who got third place. Like I didn't look into it. I don't care.
No idea.
Yeah. So third place playoff was between Netherlands and France. I have no clue who won. Probably France. Fuck Netherlands. Let's see. Netherlands, France. I still have no idea.
Was there a third place game in this? Or yeah,
I think there always is, right?
I don't know. I don't remember seeing it. I don't see it listed here, but I could be wrong about that.
Oh no, there were no third place matches between France and Netherlands. I just assumed there was, and I didn't care. All right. So anyway, that covers the Euros. So let's talk about Copa America, the dysfunctional stepbrother to the Euros.
Yeah, I wasn't sure where you even wanted to start with this one. Jesus Christ.
I mean, we can talk about the final.
It just keeps getting worse, too. It seems like every day in the media.
Nearly went to pens. And then Lautaro Martinez, I think in the 117th minute or something. I don't have the who scored up in front of me, but very late in the game.
Late at night, too, because the game had to be delayed, which will explain why that was.
Yeah. So he scores the game winner. It makes Messi the winningest player of all time, I think, with like 45 trophies for club and country. And I'm trying to think of what else. I mean, I watched this a while ago, but I just like sort of didn't have the level of interest in Copa America that I had in the Euros, especially after how uninspiring the US's performance was in it. I was sort of interested in whether or how far Canada could push it, but they exited against Argentina and the eventual winners, Argentina. I guess speaking of Messi, I'm sure you thought he should have played on from that ankle injury, I'm guessing.
I think it's unfortunate given that it was given the attendance and the stature of the game that he had to come off and hadn't really done a whole lot at that point. Just from a I'm sure I think it's not that I gave a shit, but I think for most fans, people obviously want to see Messi play. So that was unfortunate to see him come off.
Yeah, he came into the tournament injured. They were sort of managing his minutes. He didn't look like himself. He's probably never going to look like himself again. That's just the phase of his career that he's in. I assume he's going to try to make it to the World Cup. And at that point, he's going to be like a player coach. Like, I can't imagine that Messi is starting in the World Cup, even as much of an icon as he is. If you like extrapolate the decline in his career out to another 2 years, it's not going to look good, in my opinion. But I don't know.
I mean, you've seen players change roles that were that good, and I don't know. I think he'll be there to your point, but is he going to have a role, or is it going to be just I
think he'll come off the bench. He'll be like what Shaqiri was for Switzerland this Euros. I think. I could be wrong, and it's hard to like. it's hard to bench Messi if you're Argentina. Like
Yeah.
it's almost like, well, you
You're in
saw
a
it with
stuck
Cristiano
position.
Ronaldo
Yeah.
when like in the year, like Cristiano Ronaldo had no business
Well, I would say it's
getting.
different in the sense that I don't know that there is an obvious alternative to Ronaldo on that team that was better. Whereas you obviously Martinez, for one, should probably be starting over Messi at this point if striker is the position you're trying to fill.
Mhm. Which it kind of has to be because Messi doesn't run anymore. So
No,
wherever you,
I guess
yeah,
the only thing I could see him doing is playing behind one or two forwards and just basically standing there, receiving the ball, playing passes, and
yeah,
taking set pieces and stuff, right? Like a more limited role. But
yeah,
obviously he's never been my favorite player, but I think there is value in having him out there, even in a diminished role, if that's what they want to make work, if that's the best option.
yeah. I mean, as it stands, there's obviously value. I'm just saying,
Yeah, in 2
I don't know.
years, yeah,
It looks
we'll
to me
see.
like his abilities have fallen off of a cliff after or over the last season, and he's not playing in a competitive league as much as
Yeah,
I want the MLS to do
MLS isn't
well. Like, so
helping.
you take 2 more years of him in the MLS, and like Father Time is undefeated.
Sure.
I'm almost 40. I tweak my fucking Achilles crewing for Shannon. Uh,
Okay.
so
All
like,
right.
yeah, I
That's
mean,
where we're at.
I'm not Lionel Messi, obviously, but like
Yeah.
he's not playing competitive soccer anymore. You push that and age decline from age out another 2 years. He'll be 39, I think. Is he 37 right now?
Yep. Yeah, you're right.
That's, I mean, yeah, and they've made these tweaks to how they're using him over the years to where he's like he has no defensive workload. He's basically only expected to run once he has the ball at his feet, and otherwise he sort of like wanders around and ghosts into positions where he can receive the ball.
Yeah.
So like I don't know, we'll see, but yeah, that was unfortunate. That injury looked horrifying. Like I said, he came into the tournament injured. He left even more injured. Probably good thing for him that he wasn't on that Argentina bus, which we can talk about here in a second. But yeah, he was obviously getting medical treatment and not part of that debacle. Yeah. What
Yeah.
else did you want to talk about? And then we can like
I
pivot
think
to this Enzo Fernandez
yeah, I
mess.
mean I think, I will say that yeah, Messi's decline aside, right? I think Argentina was still clearly the more talented team. Based on the players and on paper and all that, if you look at it. So Colombia, I thought Colombia rose to the occasion, played a good game, had obviously a great tournament overall. James kind of did less in this than he kind of did in the rest of the tournament. Diaz couldn't kind of break through. So, I think it was good to see a competitive match though. In Colombia, I think kind of exceeded expectations and really grew into this game. Now, the unfortunate thing about that is you have the backdrop of their bullshit in the Uruguay game with the fans, and then just a complete debacle in this one in terms of basically breaking into the stadium, stampeding into the stadium. Some of it comes back
Climbing
to
into
again like
vents.
hanging going die hard through the vents, and some of it comes back to like what we talked about. Or, I was pissed off about the whole kind of level of oversight and planning for this tournament, and in the just the preparedness. And I think some of it does come back to that, but there's also this very bad, and we'll talk about Argentina, this very bad aftertaste of kind of the beautiful game that's kind of became a shitty version of it, and some of the off the field stuff that went on here. Whether you look at Colombia or whether you look at Argentina, I don't know how at fault I think Uruguay was for going into the stands at Colombia, but all this kind of crap going on, right? That part of me worries that there's a whitewashing aspect to it, because I do think there was, if you look at like Croatia and I think it was Serbia and some of the, basically talking about murdering Algerians and chants and stuff. And there's some stuff that was overlooked in the Euros. But aside from that aspect of it, just such a bad fucking look for Copa America in the end.
Yeah, the amount of controversy around Copa, like, even if you're calling out every little thing, like, not a little thing, but all the things that were unsavory about the Euros, it's not even close. And I know that
Yeah.
CONMEBOL would like to position Copa America on the level of the Euros, but it's not even close. Like, it's clearly corrupt in a number of ways, and then the product itself is a mess. And yeah, I don't know, I don't want to call it cultural differences. I mean, we'll talk, like let's just pivot into the Enzo Fernandez stuff. So yeah, after the match, um Enzo Fernandez live streamed footage from the Argentina bus where they were singing a chant that I think originated when they were in the final against France in the World Cup. So
Yeah.
this is a chant that has been around for a little while, and it contains undertones of racism and homophobia, maybe other things. I don't know. I actually haven't watched the video. I wouldn't understand the chant. Like, it's not in English. So like, I just haven't bothered like listening to it. I haven't seen the video. I have seen the fallout. It's clearly upset a lot of people. Um, and this is not a defense of it happening, but we talked about this with the statement that Bentaker made, or the quip that Bentaker made about
Yeah.
Son. And this has been the defense that I have seen carted out by Argentina, which is that I don't like how they have phrased it or how they've positioned this defense, but it basically, like, the culture is different and that this is acceptable there. And I think that, like, I'm willing to extend an amount of charity to them on that. But there has to be, like, for me personally anyway, there has to be a plan to change, I guess. Like there needs to be progress being made on that in the way that we had to show progress, like, over the years with our programs. And yeah, so really bad look. It's upset. I mean, it's caused a ton of friction on Chelsea, which, I mean, doesn't matter that much, other than it's like good to acknowledge those players who have stood up to Enzo Fernandez, like, and shined a light on this. So like, the internal turmoil at Chelsea is not that important when it comes to this, but the players sort of unifying against who is, the second most expensive player in EPL history. That takes some guts. And yeah, he's got a long road ahead, I think, to fix his relationship with those players, and I guess the damage to his reputation from this.
Yeah, but it tells you a lot about
Yeah.
where the game and where the culture, the cultural aspects of the game stand in North America versus Europe versus South America. And
Yeah.
obviously, not being around the bush, like North America and Europe have terrible, much worse histories, I think, in terms of racism than probably South America does in so many different ways, right? But that doesn't just absolve them of this behavior. And to your point, require there be some progress there. And I wasn't going to call them out by name back when it happened, but when I went and looked at who it was that was racially abusing on social media, Balogun as an example, earlier in the Copa. At least one of the guys was Argentinian. And so, at the time I thought where there's smoke, there's probably fire. And this just kind of reinforced that, right? There's a problem. There's a lot of acute problems across the game. And this is another one that raised its ugly head. It's not the only one, but to your point, I'm glad people are calling out and there's not just this acceptance of it.
Yeah. What I hope to happen is, so I'll stick my neck out there and say that independent of anything else happening, I don't think you're going to see Enzo Fernandez play for Chelsea for a while. Like you might in preseason. So they're about to leave for their North America tour. I'm sure Enzo Maresca wanted this like he wanted a hole in his fucking head, as like a brand new coach to Chelsea. But I think that you're going to see, independent of anything else happening, I think you're going to see a like silent ban on Enzo for a while. I don't know how many games it'll be, but you've hit Chelsea, at least in the previous ownership, even, which was a problematic ownership for sure. There was a willingness for them when their players did shit like this. They would bench them for like and it would be like a silent benching, but everybody knew what was going on. And so I will say that I'm virtually certain, I'll be shocked if Chelsea doesn't do something like that. But what I would like to see is that the FA or FIFA or all of them come out with a ban for Enzo. Like I'd like to see there be some like concrete consequences for this from the governing boards, so that the message gets across to other players.
The governing boards, are part of the problem because they're such complacent fucks at this point. And I think, building on what you said, right? Like somebody had a good point, which is there's other people in that video. There's people off screen, right, that are participating, and like what are the consequences for them, right? And shouldn't I think there probably should be visibility and transparency with who else was there and who else was participating. Now maybe that's hard to get to, right? But there should be some uproar about that as well, I think, to the extent people are aware of it. But because then part of me makes it feel like we're you're making Enzo the pariah for them, but that doesn't, granted, again, life's full of choices. He's on the video, the on screen doing it, and it wouldn't. I'd be fully behind him being sanctioned, whether it's by Chelsea or by the governing board.
He was streaming it, yeah, and like sometimes it doesn't matter who else was doing it. You go for the highest profile person. And Enzo, I mean, there's a lot of high profile players on Argentina, obviously, but Enzo is up there. He's starting for Chelsea. He's starting for Argentina. He won Young Player of the Tournament at the previous World Cup. He was at one point the most expensive player in EPL history. He's he's very young, but he's a global icon at this point. And if sometimes you make a big you take a harsh position on someone with that level of influence, and that's how you get the message across. And so
you've got to send a message at some point, right? Otherwise it just becomes like all this stuff that just kind of keeps going on perpetuity, whether it's Mexico or Argentina or things going on in Europe.
So I don't know. Just to wrap this up without getting like too preachy, I'm also recognizing that we're both like white dudes, and like I don't know. I have no experience.
It's tough to imagine being one of his teammates that's affected by this, right? Like I can't relate to that. All I can
I don't Wesley Fofana and Datro Fofana and Batty Shield. Like I have no idea what that feels like, but Yeah, I mean the sport is a global sport, and regardless of how Argentina feels about people's sensitivities around their football culture, you have to account for the you know how broad the appeal of the sport is, and you have to snuff this sort of thing out of the culture. And he's not like, again, I guess, like, I thought that it was kind of crazy how much of a pass Bentancur got, and I saw that that's resurfaced, and that
Mhm.
um what's his name? Why can't I think of the Ange Postacoglu? He was
Yeah,
asked about
yeah,
that in his press conference this week, and Ange said that he's not commenting on it because the only thing that matters is how it made Son feel, and that they're in listen mode, and they want to, like, they're listening
yeah.
to Son, and yeah.
You have to imagine
um
underneath that, Ange was probably pretty pissed off, not from a team perspective, but just from like he, what's the word, right? Like an integrity standpoint. Like
yeah,
he takes that very seriously. I'm sure was not happy with what that says about Bentancur or what it says about
yeah,
Bentancur as a member of that team from an integrity standpoint.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, he was obviously unhappy, but I thought his
Yeah.
his like way of handling that, where he's like, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter how I feel, like I'm not happy about this, and like I'm just listening to Son. He's who's important here. But yeah, I thought Bentancur got a pass on this, and Enzo doing what he did that, like, brought that back to light. There's also, not to just pick on Tottenham, but like I've read a lot about, they apparently have a chant at their club that has a slur against Jewish people that, like, is commonly
Hmm.
chanted at their stadium, and it makes a lot of people feel uncomfortable. So there's definitely things to address across the board here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, um, moving on from that, the last topic we have is Greg, our favorite topic on this podcast. Have any thoughts there?
What are we talking about with Greg today? He's
Greg, he left. He got sacked.
Yeah.
Berhalter.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
no, didn't I call that? I said he got deported to Canada last episode, but
yeah.
so I don't know
Oh,
where if he's in
maybe.
Halifax or Nova Scotia. I assume he's living in a double wide next to Ricky and Julian at this point.
Yeah. So Greg Berhalter's out. I guess maybe we did cover that on the last
but
podcast.
yeah, you want to talk about the Ryan rumor mill of who's going to fill that position, right?
Right. Yeah.
And how
So
well my comment about Pochettino aged.
right. Yeah. So Pochettino's in the mix. What I'm hearing, and the actions around the guy would indicate, is that Patrick Vieira is the most likely manager to
Yeah,
take on that role.
which tells me he's probably the worst option, just at face
Yeah.
value, if he's the
I
most
I can
interested.
tell you,
But
like, he's terrible. He is a very
that's my
bad
impression. Like,
manager.
I don't understand where this kind of like backing for him came from as a coach.
His record at Strasbourg, and, well, his record at Palace was really bad. And then at Strasbourg, he's been very mediocre. And so I heard about this because I'm a Chelsea fan. So Strasbourg is owned by Blueco, who owns Chelsea, and they have preemptively sacked Vieira because of how strongly linked. Like, he's apparently in, like, final negotiations for the U.S. position, and so Chelsea, because they've got a player, Blueco, they have to plan for, like, we're a month away from, which is crazy because all these players just wrapped up playing in the Euros and stuff, but and the Olympics still have to be played, but we're a month away or so from most of these major leagues kicking off, and Vieira's about to leave to go to the U.S. team. So Chelsea just, like, got ahead of that problem, or Blueco got ahead of that problem, and sacked Vieira, and are looking for
I did see that. Yeah.
a new coach there. So, like, that, like, all of that to me indicates that Vieira is very likely going to
Yeah.
be the manager of the United States, and I couldn't be any like he's better. He has to be better than Berhalter, but I would rather Southgate than Vieira.
Yeah.
And that should say it all. Like as harsh as I've been on Southgate.
Yeah. The only positive I see from this coaching candidate pool that's been suggested is that, at least that means we were looking at a diverse group of candidates, but nothing about his coaching profile gets me excited, or any less depressed about the situation. Then again, I don't know if there's many people on that list that would be willing to take the job that would. I think Pochettino, again, I think he actually would bring something tactically to the national team. And maybe it cuts out like some of his fuckery of training and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know.
Would it be good? Would his
talent?
So I don't know how. Like, we haven't seen. He's not been a terribly successful tournament coach, right? I guess he took Tottenham all the way to the CL final. He didn't get there with PSG. I don't know, like his tactics, I guess intuitively they would be good. Like they would be fine for a national team setup. I don't think they're like there's like a deep tactical philosophy there that would take like hours on the training grounds
be able to pick up.
Yeah. So, but it is like a very, like, obviously a much more physical system, physically demanding, like, press high, work for turnovers high up the pitch.
And honestly, that's what I'd like to see us push more of, right? And I think we're actually set up to do that from a talent and athleticism standpoint.
Yeah. So maybe, he might not be the worst option. The one concern being his record of injury with players, and our star, our star player is fragile. As much as I love Pulisic,
but that's only a couple cycles throughout the year, right? So I think you minimize the damage he can do. In that sense, maybe.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like CONCACAF, like if you're listening to this and you're not in the United States and you don't watch CONCACAF, it's like the UFC. It's so the reffing is terrible. I honestly think that a lot of the team's strategy is to injure players. And they know that
I think we saw that in this tournament.
Yeah. And they know that they can get away with it because the reffing is so bad, and potentially corrupt. And it's like it is brutal just to be in that mix. And then if you pour on top of that Pochettino having players do wind sprints, 18 hours.
Just lost to Trinidad. Get out there and run.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine, like, players like, Tyler Adams just had to have surgery on his back again and is going to miss the beginning of the season with Bournemouth again. Pulisic has to be wrapped in bubble wrap after every match. So it's not the most robust team in terms of their ability, like at least in key positions, their ability to stay healthy. Like Reina doesn't have the best track record with injury either. Balogun went down in Copa. And players get injured, but it does seem like as talented as the U.S. squad is, they also struggle with injury. And so, I don't know. There'd have to be some accountability around that, and being like, dude, you cannot run these players into the ground. They have to be managed. So, yeah. But beyond that, I guess I'd be on board with Poch. It might work for like maybe that's his power zone, international coaching. I have no idea. We haven't really seen it. I'm convinced that Tuchel would be a great international coach just because of how good he is in tournaments. Like The Chelsea team that he won the Champions League with was not a great team. He just got the most out of them in that tournament and won. And they beat very difficult team. They beat Real Madrid and they beat Man City on the way to winning that. With a like not the most talented team.
Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, if England aren't taking Tuchel, I don't know why we wouldn't. This should be a very attractive role for a coach, especially if you're just like, if I was the director of football for the U.S. national team, I'd be like, look, and I think I said this on the last episode, we are in the most important 2-year window in U.S. soccer history. Like the popularity of the sport is trending up. We're getting more eyeballs on the MLS even. We have the most talented pool. We have the best pool of talent we've ever had on the U.S. team.
Yeah.
And the amount of PR, this is a 2-year job. We need a high profile, tactically sound coach, manager to carry us through this World Cup and drum up a lot of publicity, a lot of excitement around this through the World Cup, and that's it. Yeah. Like we'll find someone else after that, and just back the Brinks truck up to whoever will take. Like just aim high, and then gradually work your way down the list, and eventually someone will be like, "Yeah, I'll do." Like it might not be Klopp, but you should be able to find a very high profile coach to take this on because of, I mean, it's going to be very lucrative for them. We're the biggest commercial
probably
market
interested in picking up a mistress in the United States still too. He may not have one, so it would be especially good fit for him.
Yeah. So I would shoot for the stars with this one because I mean it should be a very attractive package just for this window. If it was like, hey, do you want to come manage this team indefinitely type thing, the circumstances would be different. But for the set of circumstances that we have with the World Cup being hosted in America, it should be really easy to pull in a great coach for this. But yeah, this was my 2 cents. Any other thoughts on the Greg's replacement search? I will say that I should apologize for what's his name. I have without a lot of research, I've defended Alexi Lawless a little bit on this podcast. And I happened to read about what a piece of shit he is this week. I think like on the plane. I had no idea, actually. I just thought, my position on him was like with all sports or like most sports that I watch, there's, in terms of the announcing team, there's usually the guy who is like the tactician who's explaining what's happening in whatever you're watching, the guy or girl. And then there's the other announcer who is the color commentary guy. And Alexi Lawless seemed more like the color commentary type, and he did like when like amped up, he was very like America, fuck yeah, type. Which if you're the guy who is broadcasting to Americans, then that's good. It's good to have that, and he's very energetic but then I read, and that guy is just like a huge piece of shit, and I didn't know that. So my defense of Alexi Lawless will not persist.
All right. I'll put that in a win column for the rest of us.
Yeah. I posted that in the Discord. I think I took like multiple L's this week. I don't know what I forget what the other ones were, but.
At our age, that's kind of what life is about, Ryan. I don't know.
Yeah. The Lenny Euro to Man United. That was the other one where I was like, there's no way this guy, there's no way that train wreck of a club is going to pry a target away from Real Madrid. And they did. So I hope that Lenny Euro enjoys the sunshine of Manchester.
And the
Um,
tutelage of Harry Maguire. Yeah.
yeah, he'll get to learn under the
The
greatest
best.
defensive
Yep.
mind that we've ever seen. Um, and yeah, so yeah, Man United kind of cooking in the offseason. It looks like they're going to pull Manuel Ugarte from
Yeah.
PSG,
Yeah.
which is that's like a hilarious dumpster fire to me, because I don't know if you remember this, but prior to Chelsea being in for Caicedo, their number one
Yeah.
target was actually Ugarte. He was a
Yeah.
more affordable option for that holding mid, that defensive mid position. But uh, PSG, he was more affordable until PSG came in and absolutely dumped the bag on him. And so that just made it a non-starter, to where like Caicedo was a more affordable option in terms of total compensation between the transfer fee and the player compensation than Ugarte was. And so Chelsea backed out of that deal. He went to PSG. He's been there for less than a year, or maybe like right on about a year. And I looked at his playing stats, and for being such a marquee signing for them, he only started in like half their games. And I did read a little bit tactically about how he was just such a bad fit for what's his
What they're
name?
trying to do. Yeah.
Yeah, the Luis Enrique. His tactically, what he wants from his holding mid is, obviously turnovers, but more important for that than that is them being like a deep lying playmaker type. And
Yeah.
Ugarte is not that. He's not like a line breaking passer of the ball.
Yeah.
So he just like went unutilized, and I don't know how that deal is going to look, because I can't imagine United will be able to match the wages of PSG. So there may have to be like some wage contributions from PSG just to move him on. I don't know, but what a mess! Like, what a bad transfer that was. That is a worse transfer if Mudryk sucks next season, and Chelsea have to take a loss on him. That will be completely eclipsed by how upside down PSG is on Ugarte.
Sure. Yeah.
Like it won't even be close. So yeah, so as bad as we've talked about the Mudryk deal has the potential to be for Chelsea, Mudryk at the end of the day is on like 75 a week. So like
Yeah.
getting someone to assume those wages will be very easy.
Yeah. Now, and we've talked about it before, PSG is just a circus, and it just keeps kind of going that
Yeah.
direction.
Yeah. And then I'll leave you with this. Napoli and Lukaku have agreed terms. There's not a deal between the clubs. Yeah, there's not a deal between the clubs yet, but they have agreed personal terms on a 3-year deal. It looks like Osimhen, there might be this like musical chairs that goes on where Osimhen is going to go to PSG. One of the French strikers at PSG might come to Chelsea, and Lukaku would go to Napoli. I forget which of they have like 2 pretty promising young French nines at PSG, if I remember right, and I don't remember which is potentially coming to Chelsea, but we'll see.
Yeah, Chelsea might be willing to work out the deal at this point.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Well, for Lukaku, yeah, Lukaku,
yeah.
Don Conte will bail us out once again. Well, that's all I got, man. You have anything else you want to cover?
Nope, that's it for me.
All right, I'll be more organized next week. We'll be back in Maryland. Maybe Luke will be there, but probably not. Follow us on social media. Join our Discord. I updated the link wasn't working in our show notes. There was like an expiration on that. I generated a link with no expiration. So join our Discord. That's in the show description. And like and subscribe wherever you you listen to this, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever, any comments are helpful. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you guys next week.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.